Anybody got an immediate battery problem?
Nope.
On my microphone or on me?
How about my pacemaker? Okay, let's see, where do we gotta go here? Okay, we can call a meeting to order at 7 o'clock?
7:01.
7:01. Okay, let's do the pledge. And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, my. Would you like to be secretary, sir? If you say no, I can muddle through, because I'm not going to write everything down, but whatever actions we take.
Actually, this evening, I'm not in a capacity to do that, but thank
Okay.
you. Sorry.
Mr. Hops, would you like to take the notes?
Not really.
Okay. I won't ask Steve. I know what that'll be.
All right, geez, I'll do them.
Well,
I'm just,
they don't have to be, it just needs to be the roll call starting now. Time we started, 7:01. So why don't you go ahead and do a roll call, and we'll get through it here.
Roll call. Treasurer Hops here. Supervisor Bertrand.
Here.
Trustee Monet.
here.
Trustee Detmer.
Here.
Clerk Pern. Absent.
That's too bad. I thought he was going to come out of that better.
Yeah, his face is bothering him from that dental surgery.
Okay, we can move right into board comments. I have a couple, but I'll wait here, see if anybody else got anything they want to say.
I don't have anything.
Okay. So this meeting is only to discuss broadly the short-term rental. So there's not a lot of information over there. There's a couple things I'm going to say that I put in writing. So if nobody else has any comments as far as a board comment initially.
Well,
You want to do the agenda first?
do you want, so anything I would have to say would be in conjunction with the agenda, correct? I'm assuming.
Yeah, this is like separate from,
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine.
because I did have one or a set of things I was going to read over.
Okay.
So if nobody else does, I'll do that. I'm a big believer in all things happen for a reason. And I'm actually glad that the wheels of government ended up turning so slow that it took us this long to get to this point. It gave me time to fully understand that allegations and assumptions are no basis with which a township board, commission, or committee should ever create township policy. I have similar situations on a park and rec committee. I learned that in the last year that what were initially perceived to be facts about short-term rental problems proved to be unfounded when proof was requested. I see in the last year that creating a crisis without facts is a well-used tactic of special interest groups who have a PhD in pompous and a master's in condescension. This is all through the sewer wars. And for a small bit of humor, I learned that this board works best when we're all not crazy at the same time. From rumor and conjecture. We spin, but I think we're all kind of getting a little smarter about that. So let me say thank you for coming. I encourage you to often remind yourselves that every day your elected local officials do something for you or to you. You have seen that I represent the majority of residents' interests, approximately 2/3 of the registered voters who voted for me, not special interest groups. You've seen that I am here as a Republican to safeguard residents from intrusive local government while promoting Lyon Township residents' personal freedoms and property rights. That's why I was elected. That's what I'm for. And that's what I'm going to do and continue to do. And it's a pleasure to serve. So I felt that was worthwhile saying before we start. So if there are no other board comments, we can move on to approval of the meeting agenda with additions or modifications. I have one addition that I'd like to add. And maybe other people do, depending on, this is related to short-term rentals. I'm going to add that a motion to hold a public hearing to announce additional short-term rental information on the 29th, Wednesday the 29th at 1 p.m., based on the attorney's advice that that's how we should do it. So that would be an addition to the agenda. At the end, I'd make that motion.
What was the date?
Wednesday the 29th at 1, but I'm throwing that out there. Maybe that's not going to work for other people. That gives us time to get it in the newspaper in next week's edition and a two-week run.
I've got a jury trial Wednesday and Thursday.
The 29th of that week, you mean?
Yes.
Anything, if we get it in the paper next week, Thursday, anything after 2 weeks from there suit your needs better? You know, Steve, if you got to work, is there any other, like a particular day or evening? It doesn't matter to me. I threw that out there.
Generally, Tuesdays are better for me than most other days.
Could like a Tuesday at 5 o'clock or something work where Timothy'd still be able to get there?
And this is our own personal board hearing, not a planning commission hearing, nothing else.
Right.
This is strictly for us and the people.
Yep.
Okay. So
Mr. Hops, you got any problems with that date? It looks like Steve, how about, I can make a motion that we send a tentative date, and, because Greg's not here either, I thought he would be. If we have to change it. So, for Wednesday the 29th, you're not working that day and you don't have anything going?
not that I know of.
Okay. All right, so I would plan to add that as as an addition. Does anybody else have any additions related to short-term rental stuff for today? Okay, well then, hearing none, I would make a motion that we approve the agenda with the first item being the discussion on short-term rental draft and the addition of a motion for a public hearing as modified. Do we have a second for that?
Uh-huh.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Mohan.
Don't talk so fast. I can't write this down.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion from the board on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda as modified signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Okay, that motion carries 4-0. Okay, so first agenda item. It's kind of lengthy in what I put here, but it is a general discussion, so not a motion to do it. A general discussion and update on the Lyon Township Board approved short-term rental draft sent to the Planning Commission for recommendations 1 year ago this April. Including discussion on a Planning Commission's suggested additions, changes, omissions, and recommendations concerning the township short-term rental draft made back to the Lyon Township Board for consideration. The intent here was discussion only. Our legal firm suggests that any details or decision-making outside, that are done outside of a public hearing would not be proper. So this is a meeting, not a public hearing. We can talk about things, and that the Township Board not take any action on any Planning Commission suggested additions, changes, omissions, or recommendations to the Lyon Township Board approved short-term rental draft. So as far as the board, we're here to talk and say what we think. I think everybody's generally aware of what we had before and the changes that the Planning Commission made. I do have comments about that, but how about we hear from some of the rest of you here on this? This would be your chance to speak up about what you think in any way, shape, or form in relation to those short-term rental drafts from the Planning Commission and the original. Don't intend to make decisions, but we can certainly air our concerns and grievances.
Well, what I have to say is quite lengthy, so I would like to refrain if someone else would like to go first, because I have a lot of information that I think the public deserves as well as this board.
We got time.
Oh,
You can have my,
sorry.
So note-wise, this will all be there, but if it's not a decision, you don't have to have it.
there's no, I mean,
You just say.
I'll have to get
Mr.
his
Monet
notes
gave it.
afterwards to make a copy for the minutes.
So informally, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, good evening. Thank you for being here. I will say first and foremost that my massive file I had been putting together somehow when I tried to work with it, my iPad got deleted. So I've been scrambling to put together key points and notes of things I wanted to address concerning the short-term rental ordinance. And I've spent months working on this, so please bear with me. And if you know a lot of this information, great. If you don't, maybe something else will enlighten all of us. Speak up. Yeah, I'm kind of quiet tonight.
Can you hear anything from the back speakers?
Is that okay?
Right, but is there anything, there
No, I
should
don't
be,
feel.
it should be coming out of those back speakers. If it's not, I can turn it up over there.
No.
I'll just speak up.
Well, let me see.
Okay.
Can you hear them better now?
Yeah, I'll just
Okay.
try my best to speak up. So first and foremost, for me, I'm genuinely concerned and genuinely concerned. One basic question that I do believe should be resolved tonight: what is this board going to do, and how do we plan to proceed? Are we going to proceed per a straight-up police power ordinance through Act 245 of 1946, which is what a majority of the municipalities in this state do, or are we going to push this through zoning? And there are some very, very key differences. So I'm going to go through some basic things so everyone understands the differences, I guess. A police powers ordinance does not regulate the use of land. Rather, it regulates an activity. Examples include police power include motor vehicle use, parking, food, safety, boats. Unlike zoning ordinance, police power ordinances do not have to have a grandfather clause and can apply to existing uses. And the reason being is that police power ordinances are retroactive. Anyone who has in a township a police power ordinance, and there are municipalities out there, will have the right down the road to change them at will, to deny the use of short-term rentals at will, because they're retroactive and they can say they were never legal in the first place. I personally don't agree with it. I think it's an injustice to the people, but that's me. In the context of short-term rentals, there's two approaches that offer different advantages. Generally speaking, zoning ordinances allow for short-term rentals to be confined to a particular district and cannot regulate dimensional aspects of short-term rentals, but will not apply to existing short-term rentals that are lawful under the municipality's current regulations. On the other hand, police power ordinances will apply to existing short-term rentals and can more fairly focus on, my page here, the conduct of the renters, but they will not be able to limit the short-term rentals to a certain location within the municipality. These two approaches, because there's going to be zoning here next, are completely different. If we look at zoning ordinance regulates the use of land and buildings according to districts, areas, or locations. Examples of land use regulations: site setbacks, building form, height, and accessory use of the land. Another aspect of zoning is the requirement that the regulation can never be retroactive. So that's where the grandfather clause would come into play. Anyone who currently has an existing short-term rental would not qualify, and there's a reason why. That's my next point. Most municipalities in Michigan and townships use permissive zoning. And what is permissive zoning? Permissive zoning across the state of Michigan. If a zoning use is not listed in a jurisdiction zoning code or ordinance, it is permitted unless otherwise explicitly prohibited. And the key word, based on a Supreme Court ruling in November 22nd of 23 that reiterated that permissive zoning is allowed, would be, if we go back to, sorry, there's a lot of notes here, our master, what I like to call our master ordinance. Section 1202, prohibited uses. Within each zoning district, uses that are not expressly permitted by this ordinance are prohibited. And there's the difference right there. So a lot of this has to go, by the way, too, with questions that have been asked to me. A lot of people have said, well, if I've had a rental for all these years, why can't I continue? You can't, because under permissive zoning, it was never legal in the first place. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that is the rule, that is the law, because it was never a permitted use. Uses for enterprises or purposes that are contrary to federal, state, or local laws or ordinances are prohibited. But Supreme Court has upheld, the state Supreme Court, the use of that permissive zoning, and there it is. So I wanted to get that out there, that there won't be this huge argument that if I had a rental for 20 years, why can't I just keep it? Kind of doesn't work that way. Under police powers, Act 246 of 1945, a crucial element to me that I've noticed doing my research across the state is that a lot of townships adopt their short-term rental ordinance using Act 246, which empowered the townships way back in 1945. One key clause to this that I found interesting that I didn't know a couple years ago, but I'm aware of now, that is, and this is Section 1, it's 41.181, Section 1, Paragraph 1. Except as otherwise provided in this subsection, the Township Board of a Township at a regular or special meeting by a majority of the members elect, no wonder I can't see, may adopt ordinance regulating the public health, safety, and general welfare of persons and property, including but not limited to ordinances concerning fire protection, licensing, traffic, etc. But the big one is the licensing of business establishments. And that's how a lot of townships are getting away with this, in my opinion. If we hold true that what the Supreme Court and the appellate courts have upheld, that short-term rentals are a business endeavor, at the end of the day, then we're looking at 246 to say we're going to do the licensing of business establishments. Here's the problem with that for me. Let's see here. Under Article 6, R1 single-family residential districts for Lyon Township, nowhere in here is it listed under special permitted uses or uses by right that people can have commercial endeavors inside of residential districts. Now, to me, that's a problem because, and this has been asked of me, and I agree with this, we expect our residents to follow the rules, regulations, procedures set forth by townships. Why are townships not doing the same? I cannot find one Supreme Court case where an individual has sued a municipality because their own ordinance says, by definition, upheld by the Supreme Court, that, you know, if it doesn't explicitly say it or otherwise, why are we allowing commercial endeavors inside of residential districts? That being said, I am not opposed to short-term rentals, regulated in a way that is fair for the people and fair to the people who currently have rentals. This is just all about non-conforming uses. Real quick, too, before I even forget. So when it comes to commercial endeavors, the question has been posed, and the Supreme Court has kind of upheld this as well. What is a commercial endeavor? All Airbnbs and Verbos and HomeAway, Rent, all that are subject to a 6% use tax as required by the state of Michigan. That being said, common sense would dictate that because of that 6% use tax, That is a commercial endeavor at the end of the day and should be treated as such. And to deny and to say that we're not going to treat it as such, I think it's an injustice for the community because it opens up the door. I was a very successful barber for 30 years in East Lansing. I want to put one in my house. I can't without a variance. Why is that any different? I don't agree with it. I think we make rules, regulations, and procedures are put in place for across the board. The question has also come up to me that the issue of long-term rentals. How come they are not regulated? And here's why. The state of Michigan has never taken a stance. Long-term rentals are not subject to a 6% use tax. Therefore, the idea of them having to be zoned or otherwise does not apply in this instance. Let's see here. So we also have, in my opinion, which I think is a disservice to the people, the effects of zoning. Section 1401 of the Lyon Township Zoning Ordinance number 55. No building or structure or part thereof shall hereafter be erected, constructed, or altered and maintained, and no new use or change shall be made or maintained of any building, structure, or land or part thereof except in conformity with the provisions of this ordinance. Nowhere in the entire ordinance does it say anything about short-term rentals. I find to be that problematic. Another problem I have with what's been going around in this state is, let me find it for you, sorry. Which, by the way, the Supreme Court has upheld that it is illegal, and that would be exclusionary zoning. Let me just find my passage here. I promise I had this much more organized in my other file. All right, here it is. What is exclusionary zoning? Exclusionary zoning occurs, even if people use police powers, that's different, but if it comes down to zoning, a zoning ordinance or zoning decision shall not have the effect of totally prohibiting the establishment of a land use within a local unit of government in the presence of a demonstrated need for that land use within either that local unit of government or the surrounding area within that state, unless a location within the local unit of government does not exist where the use may be appropriately located or the use is unlawful. That's 125.3207 of the Zoning Enabling Act, Section 207. So the problem I have with that is that when you allow short-term rental ordinances into your community, you're showing a need. So it kind of comes down to, at the end of the day, what are we going to do with this? There's been a lot of talk about the Planning Commission. Police power ordinances do not require any input whatsoever from the Planning Commission. None whatsoever. They can work on it, they can look at it, but it is not a recommendation required by law. Therefore, the board could pretty much just, not take what they've even put together so far, which I've kind of contended for a while. It has been a waste of time, money, and resources for a while because we haven't established how are we going to move forward. If we're going to do zoning, absolutely, we must go through the Planning Commission. So, that being said, because I'm going to cut myself short.
Go ahead, you're here to, this is the time.
After all the research I have done, I think the one thing that truly I feel is fair and justified is, and I didn't bring it with me this evening because I was running out of ink, sorry, is short-term rental ordinance that was put into effect by Whitney Township. I think it's brilliant. I think it serves the needs of the community. Whitney Township, Whitney. Whitney Township, Michigan. Oh, yeah.
I hope so.
It would have to be Michigan to apply.
Alaska.
And what they put together, in my opinion, I feel is fair, I feel it's justified, and I think it protects the rights of due process and the rights of the people. They went into zoning and said, listen, we know that the state's going to eventually come up with something and deem short-term rentals as a commercial endeavor. So at the end of the day, we might as well nip it in the bud now, basically. They went into zoning strictly for this reason only and put it under a special exception use. And the only way a short-term rental can exist, no more than I wanted to put a barber shop in my house, which I'm really not going to, but if I wanted to, is you would have to get a special exception use. And then you will use your police powers to regulate, which will not need planning commission approval. You will use your police powers then to regulate how many, noise ordinances, all the rules and regulations that come along with it that are kind of already built in. And I think it would be prudent and wise for this board to eventually make a decision about how we're going to move forward. And that being said, too, we also, as a board, can say, we don't have to by law. I just want everyone to be clear about that grandfather. We would be able to grandfather current uses in if we chose. Now, obviously, this all has to go through legal. This all has to be verified. But my fear is that I know there's a lot of people out there that do not want short-term rentals. I get it. I don't want a ton of noise around me and be flustered either, but that's how we regulate it here to make sure, because you got to remember, the state's already working on something right now that'll make it illegal. They've tried twice now. 2 House bills have failed. And the only reason the House bills failed to pass is because they were taking away the constitutional rights of townships to regulate their own communities. They wanted control of short-term rentals in the entire state level. Whereas we need to keep it at the local level. We know our needs. So no matter what, at the end of the day, when they've made close to $2 million last year on the sales tax, or the 6% use tax, it's coming. They will ban. Both bills had built into it that it will be illegal to ban short-term rentals. I can't see any process where the state of Michigan is going to give up that revenue at all. And then all of us are going to have to start all over again if we don't try to become reasonable and find a middle ground. So if they try to, and then if we go through zoning, we've also, police powers would do the same thing, but I like the zoning idea because it does give rights to people, the right to petition, the right to protest, and I'm all about that stuff. Also, at the end of the day, we will never have to fear the exclusionary zoning clause upheld by the Supreme Court because we are not prohibiting, but we can limit them to 25 if we chose. That is up to the board, and that right would never be taken away for us. So I feel like if we're thoughtful and respectful of the process, we can get short-term rentals in the community in a way that's mindful and respectful of all the year-round residents. But we also look forward to the idea that the purpose we're doing it is to avoid all of the stuff that's coming down the pipe from the state without having to go through all of this again. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Did you get all that?
Yeah. I got a question though.
Yep.
For zoning, so if we decide that's the way to go through zoning, you have to go back to the planning commission?
In this instance, yes. Because if we're going to go through the process, normally you wouldn't have to, by the way. We've already had the hearing. But the hearing was the recommendation for the ordinance to regulate how they use it. But if we decide we would want them to go into zoning ordinance 55 as a special exception use only, that's very different, and that has to go back to the planning commission. Or it's just starting from scratch.
So in that case, would we give them our draft again?
We don't have a draft for that.
For what?
The draft to get it included into special exception use.
No, I mean our draft for the actual short-term ordinance. The board's draft we originally gave to the planning commission.
Excuse me.
And then they did what they did with it. So do we have to do that process again?
What we have to do is we should make a decision. If we're not going to go through zoning and what they put together for the regulations of it, then their recommendation is null and void because the police power ordinance, if we're using that side of it to regulate how many fines, fees, noise ordinance, all that does not require their involvement. Their involvement would be involved is if we choose to get them into Section 602 of Article 6, use is permitted by special exception.
Okay.
Because by the way, it would never be included, and most municipalities would never do this. Section 601 is a use permitted by right. The only reason that would never happen is because if you make it a use by right, then it's open to everyone. You cannot take away their rights. So there's a few different ways we can regulate this. There's a few different ways we can go at it. I just think here we are, a year and a half later,
Yeah.
and there's nothing talked about of which way do we want to proceed. And I don't think it's fair for the people sitting out there either. Plus, we have to remember, Garish has made a very bold move, trying to ban them within 4 years, in my opinion, to totally exclude them. That's exclusionary zoning when they're showing a need by allowing them in the first place. And that's okay. They can do whatever they want. I'm not here to criticize. I personally don't agree. I'm just using them as an example because they're our neighbors and it's right here. But because of that, I fear if we do nothing, what's going to happen to our township if we don't have some kind of regulation?
Well,
Yeah, it's going to be a free-for-all.
If it's if it's a commercial business, it's subject to regulations like any other business.
And that's what we have to decide because the state has decided I probably had 99 cases saved between appellate court cases and Supreme Court cases. They all came down to that they were commercial in nature. And if they're commercial in nature, once again, I'll come back to anybody's idea. Let's just open up any business we want, then who cares?
So currently, we have two ordinances, the planning commissions and the boards, or
Two drafts.
two drafts,
Mhm.
sorry. Two drafts. I guess first, we're gonna start somewhere. What are we doing? Are we accepting theirs, or?
That's, okay.
And there would be no accepting of
that-
theirs if we don't go through zoning. Don't need it. Sorry,
Yeah,
no disrespect, Dan or
again-
Sam or.
Thank you for all of that. It would be improper for us to make that decision tonight. We can talk about all variables like he just did, but we should set a public hearing to make a final decision on which way this is going. Yes, absolutely, there's a lot of different ways. I'm real leery of making any decisions tonight because he strongly advised me, do not do that outside of a public hearing.
Well, you mean we can't make a decision to go zoning or police powers?
We can if it's a public hearing. If we don't do it in a public hearing,
Well, isn't this a public's here?
no, it's not a public hearing. That's what I talked with you about earlier,
Yeah.
just a little while ago. We have to put a notice in the paper.
I just want to make sure this board understands everything I just laid out there. I'm sorry, it's a lot. I get it.
Yes.
I want the people to understand that they have rights to, and I just think that if they don't have that knowledge, then, and once again, I just can't get past the fact for the months I've been researching this, I can't get past the fact that nobody, and I'll put it out there, I wish somebody would sue the state. I can't believe, or sue townships if necessary, I don't care, because I believe in justice, that we have rules in place that say things are specifically prohibited unless listed, but yet everyone's saying, well, this is a commercial endeavor, but yeah, we're going to let them into our R1 residential districts. How? And how the state hasn't taken control of that, I can't get past that. So for me, I'll tell everyone sitting here, if it's not done the right way and regulated through zoning to be respectful and to allow for the due process of everyone who's been doing rent fairs, I'm out because I think it's a shame and I think it's a travesty to the people that we don't have enough put there, that we can't find a middle ground to protect everyone's rights. For the people who live here year round, because I know it's coming. I talked to a legislative friend in Lansing. Exclusionary zoning and otherwise, they're going to ban the idea that people can have, they're going to make it illegal that townships can ban short-term rentals. But that's just me. And I want to nip it in the bud now. So I'm trying to find a way that everyone I've spoken to that we can find that middle ground, just something.
Thank you, sir.
So our public meeting on the 29th, we're gonna decide that?
Well, we got some more input from the board, and then we'll make a motion to have a meeting to do a couple of things, and as of right now, that's one of them. How are we going to move forward?
Can I say one more thing? I think I will.
You go right ahead.
Is that this has also been brought to my attention about the idea, and Supervisor Bertrand as well, but no disrespect, that's his opinion, the idea, the lack of complaints. Well, I have a theory about that and my own opinion about that as well, that the short-term rental ordinance from the last board was put into place so close, if you will, to like the end of of their term and stuff, and things weren't even implemented yet. I don't think it's fair to say there weren't any complaints when I hear about them all summer long too, when there wasn't a mechanism for that where they could complain because it really hadn't even started yet. So you can't say there aren't complaints if there isn't anywhere for people to complain. They're out there. So I think we need to address this. I mean, we owe the people that live here year round, but we also, I don't believe, want to take away the rights of people who want to come enjoy our lake, because at the end of the day, like it or not, for some, there is some economic benefit. And maybe there's something we need to do to, and it's not just all the money those other people make, but between whether it's Good Times, Silver Dollar, Landmark, I mean, people are spending money there. So I think that, maybe we need to work with the Chamber of Commerce or somewhere and say, what is the economic value of having short-term rentals?
Did you get there yet?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm sitting in the wrong place here. Thank you for all of that. Obviously, it can be complicated.
I had a lot more, so you're welcome.
All right. Like I previously mentioned, I'm really glad this took so long. I learned a lot in the last year. I have some scattered things I want to go over, similar to what you did. Some of it is actually, opinions, either agreeing with or counter to that. But first, I want to go over how I ended up where I'm at today on this. And these are facts. These aren't conjecture. Shortly after we took office, we repealed the short-term rental ordinance passed by the previous township board with planning commission involvement. After several meetings, approximately a year ago this month, this township board approved an STR draft and sent it to the planning commission for consideration. In the ensuing months, I spent a lot of time as ordinance officer and supervisor digging into signed ordinance violation complaints and Roscommon County Sheriff's Department complaints on short-term rentals in Lyon Township. One of the things you mentioned about people came in constantly. The difference was, I said, if you put it in writing, I can act on this. Nobody would put them in writing. So, therefore, there's an end to that. In the digging around that I did, there were no short-term rental noise complaints lodged with the Roscommon County Sheriff's Department in 2025. Only 4 complaints on noise in Lyon Township at all. And those were not short-term rental specific, but fireworks on the 4th of July weekend. At the point I got this information to them, light bulbs started going on. There were no short-term rental signed complaints that I'm aware of lodged in Lyon Township. And like I just said, I heard all kinds of them, but they wouldn't stand behind what they were telling me. That was related to any ordinance violations relevant to short-term rentals while I was ordinance officer. I also could not find any in the previous board's files. So theirs existed for a while. There was nothing there. No one really knows how many short-term rentals there are in Lyon Township. Nobody. Estimates range from 55 to 125. No one knows. The PC has recently returned our Township Board STR draft with approximately 16 significant changes or omissions from the original. A couple of weeks ago at a meeting, it's not my job to do the research for everybody here. I know what's in there. I know exactly what got changed. And I know exactly what got left out. But we're not going to debate that tonight because there's no decision coming out of it. Personally, I am not saying no to a ceiling number on short-term rentals. What I want is data and a chance to deal with short-term rental bad actors individually and signed complaints before even considering a ceiling number. The data we gather in the next year will drive future evidence-based decisions. This is coming from 2 months ago, Dave Denbauer in Denton Township just did one. And in talking with them people, another light bulb went on. Nobody knows. So their first move is, okay, we'll put one out there and we'll start collecting the data. We'll start monitoring the complaints. We'll deal with the bad actors, and we'll see where we're at in relation to whether we need a ceiling number, we don't need a ceiling number, how many we end up with. And again, that light bulb went on because that's avoiding knee-jerk reactions and trying to rely on data, making data-driven decisions instead of conjecture. That just makes a lot of sense to me. So we now know how a different township started. It's Denton. We can similarly put a short-term rental in place for a gathered data review in the spring of 2027. Facts age well. The rest of this is a bunch of crap. Clarity brings bad ideas. We don't have to jump on any kind of a ceiling number. We can put something in place and we can do a good job paying attention. And if people want to stand behind what they tell us, they can put it in writing. But I've said this before. I had a person tell me they had 2 police reports and everything. I said, okay, great. Now I got something I can work on. They never showed up. So at what point did they start lying to me? The first thing they said when they realized I wasn't going to do anything unless they had some proof? I don't know. It makes no sense to me anymore. This is a year ago I was with this, not anymore. It makes no sense now to put a ceiling number on something when we have no clue on what's really going on. In the future, I'm going to push for evidence-based decision-making by our township board. I think, as I said, we all listen to everybody. Things get a little crazy. Not a fan of that. Lastly, 2026 is the 250th year celebration of freedom of choice in this country. So I have some snippets of things from our attorney. I was trying to figure out which one to exactly say first. I'll start with this. I had asked him about what we can do as a township board in relation to a planning commission recommendation. You can completely ignore whatever the planning commission gave you and or give them a new draft to consider. Any amendments must be given final approval by the board. The PC just drafts, prepares recommendations. If the board doesn't like it, it doesn't have to vote on it. In trying to keep it in sequence here, if the board reviews, and he's referencing the planning commission's version, at their meeting and makes minor changes only, then you would not need to hold a public hearing. You could make small changes as long as the overall intent and purpose of the ordinance remained in place. If you're going to make substantial changes, you should notice it as a public hearing. So that's the track I'm trying to follow right now. So our choices actually are to ignore it, to try and work with it with a whole bunch of public hearings. And we will, if we set a meeting date coming up for a public hearing, there will be a determination. We will vote then on what we're going to do and talk about why we vote that way. To me, the public hearing that we have is going to determine the discussion areas going forward. If we decide that we're going to go with the Planning Commission and set a series of public hearings to go one by one through all the changes, okay. If we decide we're not going there, we're going to go back to our original and we may tweak it with different information, okay. But that's 2 different directions, so there's no sense. You're only going to be talking about one direction after the meeting we have, if that makes sense to anybody. We make a decision, then that's where we're going. Now this came today, and that's the reason I'm trying to do it this way. I thought today we could make a decision on the direction. What he said today is, I would prefer that you have a public hearing to do that. Okay, he's the municipal law attorney. I'm okay with that.
He prefers.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. In any case, that's all the information I have and how I arrived at where I am today. And as Timothy stated, his information, that's mine. There are other things. If we were to do a police power, we really only need to add it to the zoning 55. So it does not mean that that means other places like haircuts or restaurants or whatever could move into residential. We, this township board, no planning commission involved, could add it to the zoning ordinance to be specific that we will allow short-term rentals in R1. So it is not a blanket thing, at least in what he's telling me. Long-term rentals are not considered businesses that would get a short-term rental permit. So that's what I got as of today. It is my hopes that in the time frame coming up to a public hearing that we can talk to each other one-on-one. We don't have to violate any open meeting acts, and we do. But at the time that we have that public hearing, we will need to, at that point, decide, okay, what direction are we going? We can start over. We can use what the Planning Commission had and start hammering on that, which honestly, if you take the ceiling number out of it, the current Planning Commission recommendations, might as well throw all of that right out of there. And I'm sure that's not going to make, I mean, nothing makes everybody happy. But if we decide that a ceiling is not what we're going to do right away, then none of that language needed to be added in there. And frankly, I don't understand why you put it in there, but you did. Other things like you omitted the septic inspection for a short-term rental residence. Not getting that one either. But I'll stop right there. I don't want to get into I'll try not to get into the details.
I'll just say this for the record. I am not glad the wheels of government ended up slow walking this because frankly, I don't know I'm not going to judge anybody, but frankly, we should be embarrassed. We're a year into this thing and we still are no further ahead than where we started. And that to me is, that's my opinion, and I just think it's not the way government should work. I'll put it that way.
I'd like to offer some rebuttal information, debate 101, that actually the idea of we don't know how many are out there, well, we kind of do in a roundabout way. Teresa Smallridge back in the day took the time and effort on her own and went to every single rental site that she knows, the major ones, whether it's Airbnb, Vrbo, HomeAway, this, and did her due diligence for the township at the time, and she got to right in between 65 and or 69 rentals, short-term rentals that are listed in Lyon Township at that time. That said, we'd be prudent and wise no matter what we do, and other townships have done this, including Garish, that if you're the mom and pop, we're not chasing you down. It's been going on for generations. I don't care if someone wants to have their friends stay at their place. If they give you a few $100s, that's none of my business. If my sister wants to come and stay in my house for a week and give me $100, that's nobody's business. I'm not going after it. But when you actively advertise and you're open once again to that 6% use tax, to me, it now becomes a commercial endeavor. That's number one. Rebuttal number two, we still haven't heard from Supervisor Bertrand. It's the whole idea, are we going to take the Planning Commission's recommendation? It does not matter, people. It comes down to, are we going to go through straight police powers, Act 246 of 1945, or are we pushing it through the Zoning Enabling Act, which does require the Planning Commission?
I agree with you 100%. But I don't, well, I mean, we have to decide one way or the other. I'm not going to make a statement on that because we haven't decided.
Right. So the question is whether or not we're not going to take the recommendation. The question is what direction are we going to go first before we may look at their recommendation?
Yeah, two directions. Yeah.
Well, two directions, yeah. And finally, I've called legal professors I know from downstate. I've talked to the MTA about this numerous times. Honestly, for me, no disrespect, I do not care what Mr. Bila says about Ordinance 55 in this sense. They have made it perfectly clear to me that when this township adopted Act 110 of 2006, the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act in 2006, they had 1 year from the date of adoption, and everyone had to comply with the Zoning Enabling Act by July 1st of 2007. Any single amendment to zoning must go through Planning Commission, votes, hearings, the whole 9 yards. This idea that at the end of the day, you just throw zoning in there, you can't. I don't care what anyone says. You can't do it. I've read the statute. I've talked to legal scholars. It's just the right way. And that being said, and there have been instances in the past, I have found 3 major ones where prior boards in this township amended zoning without going through the proper procedures. That is not the right way you do things. You follow procedures. Rules, laws, and procedures are put in place for a reason. Until they get challenged and changed, we all must follow them because we expect you to follow the rules, so I'll be darned, we should follow the rules.
Thank you,
Can I
sir.
have a chance to talk?
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. Please do.
I agree with Kevin that something should be done in a reasonable amount of time. And I think that I agree if somebody wants to file a complaint against their neighbor, if they come in, if they don't sign a complaint, it's not a complaint. If they don't sign a complaint, it's not a complaint.
Yeah.
But to say there's been no complaints about short-term rentals, there's no signed complaints about short-term rentals, but that doesn't mean there aren't any complaints. It's just like the boat trailer parking down there by the east access. They park all up and down Old 27. A gazillion people have complained about it, but there's no signed complaints. Does that mean there's not a problem there? Yes, there's a problem there. And does that mean that there could be a problem with short-term rentals? Yes, there's a problem sometimes with short-term rentals. To say there's no complaints, I think, is disingenuous. So that's my short speech.
Thank you, sir.
I have one more comment.
Hang on just a second. I wanted to be clear that what our attorney is telling us is if we do a police power, we can add it to the zoning.
No, you cannot.
Okay.
I will fight
Clear
that.
enough right
I
there.
will fight it to the bitter end on what the
No,
state
no.
has told me.
Clear enough
Nope.
right there. Okay.
But I have the one final comment.
Well, hang on, I was
2026,
gonna-
I'll finish this and I'll be 2 seconds. 2026 is the 250th year celebration of freedom of choice. Your Constitution guarantees you freedom of peaceful enjoyment of your dwelling. And at the end of the day, we have to take that into consideration as well. That's it. I'm done.
My
Well,
wife quotes that to me all the time. My wife quotes that to me all the time.
one more bit of information. In our original, I can't remember if we were gonna, or suggesting charging $300. Both Roscommon Township and Denton Township, Roscommon Township's been there since 2021. Theirs hovers around 60, 65 short-term rentals. Denton Township started one to even get a handle on what they really had. But they charge $500 for a permit. And with the rationale, this would be Roscommon Township. Well, both are. But Roscommon Township pays for all their ordinance officer involvement in short-term rentals just on that, plus. So the more I thought about it, again, as the year went on, if you want to have a short-term rental, you're obviously making money. You're in a position to pay a reasonable fee. So if we were to do something like that, that allows us to eliminate from the budget $15,000 to $20,000 that's allocated for ordinance officer stuff. Or not eliminate it would be, it's a balancing act between bringing some money in for it, which helps on the general fund in the bottom. So there's that to consider. Plus, I don't know what our application fee was. Oh, my Lord.
It said 300 on the current one.
You okay? Well, the application fee, I think one was 25 and then the other, they're doing 75 for that. So there is the concept that this thing, it can make money for the township.
Also, that said, just so the people are aware, and I think townships should look at this, and we
The
should be aware
license
of
fee
this.
and the application fee are two
Yeah.
different.
Right.
That couple things, if we decide to go through special exception zoning, a couple other townships like Whitney Township did this, and this, we do have to address legally. Our zoning says that all special exceptions must go to the Board of Appeals, but we are allowed as a board, we could take that out of there and say it's up to the board. That also, the state's working on a House bill again right now, that not only the 6% use tax would be put upon rentals, they're also looking at imposing a 3% tax that immediately gets returned to the townships to offset the cost to oversee their short-term rental ordinances. So, just so everyone's aware that they're trying to get that passed as well.
All right, one last thing, whatever we end up deciding to do, it is open to amendments going forward. I think that's kind of what happened in Denton. You know, we're sitting around here talking about it, but just do it. And do it in a way that we can gather data, and we can tweak this thing if the data starts telling us that we're going in the wrong direction. So, you know, in answering what you're saying, how long it took, I think they were in exactly the same boat, and they just said,
It just shouldn't take this long to get
well,
anything.
and it doesn't need to keep going on forever. We can do something, and if it's not working out, we can change what we did.
And that's not a slight at the planning commission either.
No, it's
Not at all.
more like,
Not at all.
this is one of those situations where we just need to have a base plate to start.
Yeah. I just want to know what direction we all want to go.
Well,
Because then Sam and his
had-
crew have wasted a
As
lot
of
of time.
4 o'clock today, I was leaning that way too, but I get it. A public hearing has more notification, more people be involved, more people would probably show up. So any other comments from the board, and then we'll turn it loose to the public here.
All right.
Okay, and I will try my best. Lately, I've been saying something after your comments. You get the last word, so say what you want to say.
Are we answering questions for them if we choose?
Sure. Why not?
Well,
Just asking.
questions, but we don't have a direction. So if the
Right.
questions are on
Yeah.
clarification
Well, sure.
for what you're
Yeah.
saying, sure.
Yeah, okay.
I guess
I'm trying to
I
avoid
guess
like,
if they're answerable.
And there
yeah,
you
I'm
go.
trying to
Okay.
avoid like the plague that we get into the details
Yeah.
without being in a public hearing. So we'll open it up, public comment. Anybody has something to say, come on up. You got 5 minutes. And I will try my best not to interfere. If you push the button, no, that's all right. It's pretty loose. Push the button on there and that green light should come on. Well, let me know, because if it doesn't, your batteries might be dead.
It's on.
All right.
And can we wait for Steve to come back?
Sure.
That's how he was on the planning commission?
Sure. Sometimes he has to stretch his back, so you may be doing that too.
You missed all the good stuff, Cheryl. That's fine.
On the plus
No, you
side,
didn't miss anything, really.
this meeting was we're not making any decisions. We were talking about possibilities. So we're going to set a public hearing for a date and then make the decisions.
Okay, I'm Dan Richardson. I'm on the planning commission, secretary for the planning commission. And if I might approach the board, I have something here for
Sure.
everybody. The question on why.
Thanks for asking. I won't have to be reaching for a concealed weapon or something.
Just first, to answer the question about why it took so long, I listed in here all the meetings that the planning commission had regarding and discussing the STR. And we had been charged by the board to review, make modifications, recommendations, whatever, to a draft that the board sent to the planning commission. And so that's what we did. But right now, I just want to say I'm I'm very upset when I hear that the board doesn't know whether we're going to go planning or whether we're going to go police powers. That should have been decided long before it went to the planning commission. The planning commission did a lot of work. You can see how many meetings we had. We took the draft that you guys came up with, and we compared it to, line by line, to what the short-term rental ordinance was that you guys repealed. The thought was, we want to merge the two, come up with the best ordinance, the best short-term rental ordinance that we could. We had a number of meetings where we went line by line through each draft to see which way does the planning commission think is the better way. And many of these people in here were at all of those meetings. So it wasn't just the planning commission that was making these decisions. Well, we made the decisions, but we had input from many of these people here. And the way we ran the meetings, it wasn't an official type of meeting where only the planning commission discusses and then we open it up to the public and whatever. It was a give and take the whole time. So they were heavily involved in deciding which way we should go. And we did meeting minutes that explained every single decision that was made. You know, why or not necessarily why, but we chose to go 5C this way rather than 5C this way. It's all documented in every meeting that we had, exactly what decisions, what the motion was, what the decision was, what the vote was. And after we concluded what we felt was a good merging of the two, we held a public hearing. We had an official public hearing on what the planning commission's recommendation for the ordinance was. So my opinion is that if you go the zoning route, and if the board chooses to go with the way the planning commission put it together, there is no need for a public hearing because we had the public hearing already when that 1124 draft was discussed and shown. So if the board decides to go planning route, and if the board accepts what the planning commission and the public came together as the right way to go, we had a public hearing. You guys, we don't have to have a public hearing.
Can I comment, Dan? And thank you. Do you mind? I'm just asking.
Go
you, do you
ahead.
mind? State statute dictates that at any time if a township or municipal board wants to hold their own public hearing on top of the planning commission public hearing, they have that right to do so.
I'm saying we don't.
No, we don't have to. Yeah.
The way Paul explained it there. And
Oh, we don't have to. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you're talking about because of the attorney's feedback that we had to, is what you, okay. I see where you're going with it now. Yeah.
we already had the public
Yeah.
hearing on the 1124 draft. And all the decisions are in the meeting minutes. They're not up on the web. I don't know why. I have down that I emailed them to the clerk. Exactly you know, when they got, emailed.
You guys did a good job on it. I mean, I have lots of questions on why you guys removed things, but this is not the time to get into that. But no, I wasn't, I wasn't, I wasn't saying, blaming you guys for why it took so long. I was blaming us. So don't take that the wrong way. You got it, whenever you got it, you gave it back to us and we sat on it. So I'm just saying that it's the board's fault why we're here, not yours.
And you haven't been to a lot of meetings. I've been saying for months that we need to, at different times, that we have to make a decision how we're going to move forward. So just so you're aware, does not mean everyone has to agree with me. Hope they don't, you know, whatever. But it has been, yeah, thank you. I don't disagree. Should be.
And I also think, pulling up things, we don't have facts to show that there's a movement. Agree with what Steve said, but I think you should be 100%. If you're going to take that approach, you need to be 100% on that. Planning Commission voted against the chicken ordinance. And one of the reasons we did not feel there was any, you know, request for it, we've only found two people came forward saying they needed chickens. Where's the fact, Paul, that the majority of the people want chickens and we need the ordinance changed? It's a different subject, but it's fact-based.
Okay,
Do 100% fact-based.
thank you. I would only add, and I shouldn't, but I will, I made more than one statement that I'm about individual freedom and rights. The chickens thing, to me, was, why are you trying to stop them? The other thing is, the information did get here. I read every set of minutes. I read everything you did. I know what you changed and what you didn't. I can't speak as to why it didn't get from the clerk's office onto the webpage yet, though there are many issues. I agree. Should have been there.
Say what we did. Not me, you're talking to the planning commission.
I'm not sure. I'm saying that I'm always going to look towards not interfering with people's rights, and that the Planning Commission minutes did get here. I have seen them. I read them all. I don't know why the clerk's is responsible for record keeping. I'm not really sure what happened. All right, anybody else?
Can I ask him something real quick? Do you mind, Dan? Can I ask you something real quick? Do you mind?
Well, it's,
Well, it goes to exactly.
I swear I'm going to shut up from here on in. How's that?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that the Planning Commission members weren't offended if the board would send things back, because I think you all understand that is part of the process, that if there was something we didn't agree with what you changed or added or otherwise, it is up for us to say we don't like that section, we send it back. And I hope that nobody's personally, the question of why nothing's been done or decided is a different question. I just want to make sure there isn't animosity, because that is part of the process, that this can go back and forth between board and planning commission for months. Just say, okay, we're going to send it back, we're not going to send it back, we're going to send it back, we're not going to send it back. And just because if a board doesn't take your recommendation, I don't want there to be like, well, this is what we did and you denied it. But that's also an option under statute that we don't have to take, which I've always said, quite honestly, Dan, I don't even know why sometimes these planning commissions exist. In my opinion, when the state puts such limitations on them, to say, if the board decides no, didn't mean anything. I kind of don't like it, because you guys put a lot of work into these, and I think there should be more value added to that. But that's me.
That's why I wish that the board had made the decision before we did hours and hours and hours of work.
Yeah, then that's on the board.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
I will not say it. Any other public comments?
My name is April Carnes. I guess two things real quick. I'd like clarification. When you say having a public hearing on the 29th, is that, and then you're gonna make a decision after that, is the public hearing going to be to decide to go this way or that way? Or is it going to be like on the ordinance itself? Because I don't know if the public, I don't know if we have a right to say we want it zoning or the other. I guess
I-
clarify what you're gonna have a public hearing
Yeah, this-
about.
Some of
And
the,
then-
go ahead.
And then the only other thing I just want to let you know, I belong to a group, the Michigan Short-Term Rental Association in Michigan.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
And a couple of, I'm not a real active member, but, you know, I follow it and I get their emails and things. They did a very good, presentation on the value and the economics of short-term rentals. So I have that PDF. If you'd like, I can share that with you
I'd love to look at it.
and the board.
I've read it. Thank you.
You can,
Yes, I have.
you can email it to supervisor@liontownship.org.
So if you could just clarify, like, what is the public hearing for?
I'll try to. It would be better, maybe better stated as an announcement, though a public hearing allows for public input on it. But what I was told was, if you're going to make that decision, do it at a public hearing. So in some ways, we'd have a public hearing and it would be an announcement of where we're going, or we would vote, similar to a FOIA request. Are we going to do this? If we're not going to do that by vote, then the next thing comes up until you land on something that the board approves doing.
So there was a difference between the regular board meeting, because we're all invited to a board meeting.
The public hearing has a 2-week announcement in the paper so we have to post in the paper to give the public more of an opportunity to be aware that it's going to happen.
Okay.
So that's the difference right
Yeah,
there.
when you were talking about it, it was very confusing. Nobody really didn't
I confuse myself often, so.
I
thank you
don't
for
think
being
in any
patient.
way, shape, or form it would be to pass anything as any actual regulations. No.
No,
I wouldn't think
to
so.
get into the
Yeah.
the weeds, no, how we're going to approach the weeds.
There
is
you go.
what that
Okay.
meeting is
Yeah.
going to be. Any other public comment?
What was your name again?
April Karn, K-A-R-N-S.
Need it for my notes.
You into your second page yet?
No.
Yeah, please come up. I'm sorry. How you doing?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Mary Jane Dolan, Lyon Township. And I have a question on how data was gathered on property line infringements, people being over property lines, parking on neighbors' properties instead of staying within the boundaries of the short-term rentals.
Real good question. The ordinance, when we decide which way we're going to do it, and then we get into the details of how we're going to do it, there will have to be a decision made, again, on how that would be handled. There's two
Sorry,
versions.
My question is you listed data on complaints. And my question is, how was data gathered on that potential complaint?
Ordinance officer complaint. Call the
Because
office.
I believe on the township website, it says that property line disputes will not be handled by the township any
That's a
longer.
real good point. It's not property,
It's different.
it's a dispute between two people as opposed to if it's trespassing, if they're parking on the property.
Right, so my question is,
dispute-
how was data gathered?
A property line dispute is different than this parking thing. A property line is if I live here and he lives there, and I say the property is here, and he says, no, it's here, that's a property line dispute.
Okay.
It's not parking on somebody
It's
else's
not
property.
trespassing.
Pardon me?
I said, you're saying the property line dispute is not the trespassing complaint.
Right,
It's
a
the
property
physical
line is
location of the
is this
line
my
dispute.
property or is that your property? That's a property line dispute.
So were any trespassing complaints received?
Well, I believe that's what it says on the webpage, because the sheriff's department told me that they will not do anything about egress, but if you have a trespassing. No, that's a great point, because we were talking about parking in relationship to how far onto the public right-of-way of the county road. Never, that crossed my mind until you said that about parking in relation to whether you park on your neighbor's property. To me, that's trespassing.
That's the issues that former neighbors and current neighbors have had with short-term rentals, is not abiding by staying within the bounds of the short-term rental. And I believe that was one of the things that was modified during the discussion on the proposed ordinance, the draft ordinance, was documenting the bounds of the property and where, and providing that to the renters.
Yes, that's in there. The original one had that, you can, there's a law that says you cannot block traffic on the road. The original one we had, that was in there. Again, I don't want to, another version of things could be you need to park completely on your township property. We will have to figure out which way we end up going in that direction. But it's a good point that when you're not talking about the county road right away, then if they're on your property, I'd call the police right away. That's me.
Issues with a block shared driveway and just completely parking on off the paved driveway and on the neighbor's yard because that's where they thought the property line was.
And it goes, maybe it should be said, my intention for this whole thing is when we get a legitimate complaint, we act on it. If they have a permit to do this and they're not doing what we're requesting them to do, then they don't need to get renewed the next year, and we can pull it right on the spot if we want to. It's just that I'm not convinced that everybody is a bad actor. But that's a great point.
I don't think in any of the
That's a great
discussions
point.
that we had as part of the planning commission meetings that were very well ran, very open to public input, that anybody claimed that anything was 100% of an issue. But people do experience issues.
I'm glad they show up. That's a great point. We're going to have to consider it.
So if my neighbors and former neighbors are having issues, should I suggest to them that they bring that complaint and lodge it in writing?
That's it. Well, here, one way that it could work. They call the police. You get a police report, give us the police report. So you can come in and that's what I had asked for from people before, that they said they had them, but they never brought anything in. If you have a police report that a short-term rental that's near you was parking on your property, and they had to come out and tell them to get the hell off, there should be a report, police report. That's certainly proof the next time that person is trying to renew their agreement to have a short-term rental.
I have a comment if I could. Do you mind? In kind of a question comment. So that being said, I never thought about it because I don't have anyone that could really, unless they just egregiously parked in my driveway. So what do we do now? Because playing devil's advocate, a year-round resident could park on someone else's property. So what happens nowadays? Now I'm just asking, this is all just out. I don't know the answer, so it's maybe a little rhetorical, whatever. What do we do now? I mean, individually, we know what we can do. I have my property marked, but not everyone's nuts maybe like I am, but what do people do now? So
I assume they call the police.
would that, yeah, and I've done that too. Yeah, yeah. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, I'm just curious, what have you heard of any scenarios of what people do that are year-rounders? Because I'd be curious to know how do they keep it marked? Like you have a fence and I have a fence in an area, but, you know, because it can happen anywhere, but it would just be more rotating, I guess, with short-term rentals, of course. Oh, I thought it was the renters.
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
property owner of the
Yeah.
the property owner of a short-term rental is responsible for where they park.
Absolutely.
One version of it is, yes, Garish has one like that. Ours has list the number. There's a couple different versions of that.
It was part of the discussion to amend it, to provide
part of the application process, but it wasn't a requirement. But you guys have no problem with it. We don't want it. Right.
Yeah,
So that was one of the amendments.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
Right, but it's not. If we go back to the one that
Well,
was by the
yeah, and I have to somewhat stop this because you're gonna end up on the recording and she's not. And therefore
Yeah.
it turns into, it's kind of weird to even figure out what happened.
My bigger comment is that I think there were a couple points, there was good discussion from both viewpoints of view at the planning commission meeting. Not everybody.
Oh, did that? Oh. Let me look at it while you're talking there.
There was good input from both sides. Neither side completely won, if you want to use that word.
Middle
point of
ground.
view. But if the draft is maintained versus the amendments that were sent back, there are key points that are going to be lost. Thanks. I think you all saw me
Says
push
it's
it when I
working,
came
but
up
it's
here. Oh, pushed it once or twice.
Might
Let
still
it
be
go.
working, but it ain't gonna keep working. Well, thank you for that.
All right, so
Thank
that's
you.
my comment.
Yeah, thanks.
There are good things that came up that seemed like appropriate additions to the draft ordinance that would make things better on both sides. So I don't support if we go down that path, completely throwing it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm trying to refrain from saying the variations of how we could move forward until we vote. But one of the variations is that we take pieces of a lot of different things and add them to something. Anybody else got a public comment while I'm playing with this?
Sam Bedoyan, Jr., Lyon Township. I believe you made reference earlier, Paul, about we put in a ceiling on permits. I just verified with Dan, because I thought we never did put a ceiling on permits. We left that up to the township to do that.
If I might add now, you said shall. And you and I have had conversations about the word shall or may many times. You
Well,
told us
I'm
we
not-
must put a ceiling on it.
I'm not going there with words. I'm just saying, we felt it would be the township's responsibility, not ours, as far as the ceiling on permits.
That's not what the wording said.
Well, right now, I don't care about what the wording said, all right? That's your interpretation.
Okay.
Just understand that, folks. That's his interpretation. I've got mine. We voted on it accordingly. So I just want it to be understood that we did not put a ceiling on permits. We felt it was the township's responsibility, not ours. You made comment about a septic. That also is not our responsibility. It's the township's to come up with a septic ordinance. That's why we stayed out of that in that particular instance.
I'm hearing you.
I thank the planning commission for all their due diligence. Myself, I'm not analyzing it yet because I don't know what direction we're going. I've read it, but I'm not going to break it apart at this point because, you know, another year could go by before this board makes a determination.
Another year.
Oh, no, it won't.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean,
We can act quicker than that and amend it.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what I mean.
yeah,
We can
exactly.
Get there.
But
If I may, I do have one other thought for you.
If you can, use the mic or it won't come out on that recording.
I'll first ask the question, in the beginning,
there was light.
when we received the draft from the township board on the short-term rental, and there was interpretations, did actually the board itself get involved in that, or was that just one or two individuals? The original draft that was sent to the town planning commission
That was a board voted on draft to send to you. The vote was 4-1. Mr. Monet did not approve.
But it wasn't,
It carried, but it was to send it to the planning commission.
yeah, it was to send it, but we hadn't decided which way to send it. Whether zoning or police powers. And that's why we're in the predicament we're in, because now we're basically starting over again.
I think your
which-
question is, did the board draft it as a whole?
That's what I meant. I said the
I was
board,
not part of it.
that the draft we received from the board, did you all get involved? Who created it? The
I can
changes?
answer that. The draft that we had came from Richfield Township.
Okay,
I added the additions that this board suggested should go on it, put it in front of everybody, and then we approved it or didn't.
so the rest of the board, you all got involved in that?
They had a chance to say whatever they wanted more than once.
In the additions, yes.
Okay. That clarifies that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Sam. And for the clarity, the language here is, for the number of licenses, this is what the planning commission said. The township board shall, by resolution, establish a maximum limit on the total number.
So what does that mean?
That
Just
means
let
you're
it
telling
go.
us we need to put a limit on it.
Right. Then you
Okay, that's your opinion. Thank you.
Bring it up, thank you.
Well, yeah, you and I, we talked about shall and may anytime.
I'm not a person that can sit here and debate about words like shall, and, I, you, me. I'm going by what the planning commission voted on, not just me.
I understand.
So now you just said that was interpreted, so it falls on the township board to vote on the ceiling, not the planning commission. We didn't want nothing to do with it. Just like we said about the septic. We couldn't do anything about it because there was no septic ordinance.
Okay. Any other public comments? I don't know if I'm going to get this to work or not. There we go.
it, because nobody's gonna use it.
Well, I'm going to switch it back. That one's not supposed to be there.
Oh, my.
Believe it or not, the audio level on the recording is different for each one of these mics. So if anybody else wants to get up and say something, please do.
Good evening, John. Good evening, John.
Good evening.
Are you allowed?
John Barta, Lyon Township. First of all, I want to make sure that it's clear that I oppose short-term rentals, period. Areas are zoned residential for a reason. I built my house in an area that was zoned R1 because I didn't want to build it next to a motel, right, where there were people coming in and out. I wanted to have neighbors that I knew. I wanted to be able to see Steve Detmer walking down the street with his dog. I didn't want transient people going through there. I wanted to be able to know their. So I want the familiarity of people that I know and trust and within my neighborhood. So that's why I built in an area that was zoned R1. And in fact, it is exclusionary because it is residential. There are a lot of needs for a lot of different businesses around here, whether they're barber shops or party stores or grocery stores, but there are areas defined for those. And that's where they should land. And just because someone wants to rent their home and create a commercial business, not their home, to create a commercial business, that's the wrong application. That's the wrong business. And that is part of the master plan. Now, I don't disagree with Paul that people ought to be able to do things with their land that they want to. But you also have to understand that there are people within an area that are building homes that have rights as well. And so just because someone owns a piece of property within an area that's residential does not mean that they should have the right to do anything they want there. It has been determined that STRs are commercial business. And So there's no place for them in an R1. Now, there is a demand, and the fact that the county sees that there's, or that the township feels that there's an opportunity to make some money on this is irrelevant to the fact that it's zoned R1. If the township needs to make some money, we need to look in other places. Ignoring complaints, I think is disingenuous. I would agree with Steve Detmer on that. And Paul, I think that, that you're ignoring data. You're looking for data, but you're ignoring data because you only want the kind of data that you want. People are complaining. You have a ton of complaints, your own words, but you're going to ignore that. Okay, you're not even going to consider that as part of this whole issue. And I think that it is indeed disingenuous. There are a lot of reasons why people don't sign complaints. I like my neighbor, but I want to keep it peaceful, but he's doing stuff that he shouldn't be doing. And I don't want him to know that I'm the guy who's complaining. So I don't want to sign that. Okay, but you need to know that this is not legal relative to the ordinances. And so you got to take care of this. But I don't want to sign that. All right. Now, if you are not going to act on that, you don't understand why I'm trying to keep my neighborhood peaceful. You don't understand the anonymity of what needs to happen. All right. So you and the idea that you need to investigate that further, you're saying I'm washing my hands. If you're not going to make this official, then I'm not getting involved. And I think you need to get involved, and I think you're ignoring data. And you need to take that account. You need to qualify it a little bit further. Now, I am confident that this township is probably going to pass an STR and allow something. And what I would like to emphasize the fact that there has to be a limit, because I have a relative who has a place, and they have an STR on either side, and it's in an R1 area, and there are all kinds of problems that they're having. They don't come down. They see the township as a place that's useless. I don't get anything out of there. There's nobody there that's doing anything for me. There's no, what's the convention? How do I complain? So I think the fact that what Tim had mentioned is that there was no place to complain to. I think that you need to understand everything that you've heard and understand that there are problems, and understand that you need to create a more formal process for doing this and making it easier, and not putting down a mandate, you've got to sign this. I've got to make it easier to understand what's going on. I can't make it harder. So am I really interested in understanding that? The fact, and I just, the idea that people can do anything with what they want with their property really is not true within a residential area. You just can't do that because people within those areas, they have rights with their property, and you have to make sure that those are also honored and respected. So that's my input. STRs are never good neighbors, never, ever. They can only be neutral, bad, or awful, because they're not going to know anything about me. They're not going to know anything about my kids. They're just moving. So they don't contribute anything to the neighborhood at all. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. I do want to ask, the reference you made about somebody who had bad renters on each side, was that here, like for Liontown?
Yes, that's in Liontown.
Why am I not? That's my whole point. Put it in writing, and I'll do something about it.
See, Paul, you're missing the...
Okay, I do get it. This is your opinion, and I'm listening. I'm just trying to figure out if that problem exists. Let us know.
Well, so the problem is all right, the property owner, I mean, you can call them, all right, but there's some, you want to keep your neighborhood peaceful, right? I don't want to be the guy who's always complaining, Mr. Crabtree down there who's always, bitching about everything. I don't want to have to build a fence. I don't want to have to build a fence to keep cars from parking. I want my neighbor to know, hey, that's my property, so don't park your car there. I don't want some transient people who are coming in every week. Same guy's parking in the same place because he sees the tire tracks that weren't supposed to be there in the first place.
I hear you loud and clear, sir.
So I think you really need to pay attention to the complaints. Yes.
Yes, John, can I ask you a question? Just, I need an opinion. Do you think the idea, and a lot of municipalities do this, the distance between serves any purpose? I've seen up to 1,000 feet in some municipalities, you're allowed to have short-term rentals. That's it, one every 1,000 feet.
You know what, I think honestly.
Just as an
it
opinion, of
probably
course.
does make some difference when there's concentrations of properties together, so that people don't have them next door. Because, I mean, that really destroys a neighborhood. If you have, if you've got a bunch of them together and, nobody knows anybody, So they've got to be, but, there was, I heard, one of the guys called in at one of the garish STR meetings, and the guy was like, he's on a private road, and there's 10 properties, and they're spread out, but there's all, an STR that they had on this private property, and so they're all trying to deal with it, and it's a real problem. So I do think that when they're concentrated, the answer to that is yes. I think that when they're further dispersed, it may or may not make that much difference, but the point is, you don't want them you don't want them on either side. I mean, nobody really wants one next door, honestly. I don't even want one in my neighborhood.
One final thought for you, sir. You're someone who definitely should be for zoning, and if people don't know this, they should know it because it's out there. I don't mind telling people this. Under zoning, you have rights to protest and petition anything that a township does. Anyone in the state has that right. Under police power, you don't have a legal recourse. So I'm not saying it for any other reason that I think there is a reason why I'm so the rights of due process. Give the people a chance and work it out.
In the original draft, it's 500, you can't have one within 500 feet.
There you go.
Just the.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I like the debate. Can't help it. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Anybody else? What is going
Cheryl? I'm teasing.
Okay, not seeing anymore. So again, thank you for coming. That's, as
Thank
of
you.
today, that's the direction this thing is heading.
I
We will
make a
post,
motion that we
there
close the
might have to
meeting.
have a little more conversation, or do you want to try and do a motion and pick a date that you
I
might
make
not
a
be
motion
able?
that we close the meeting.
Okay, we need to try and set a date, or we have to have another meeting to
I
set a
thought you
public
already
hearing.
did that.
I said I added it to the agenda to do. I'll make a motion that we do it and go from there.
The 29th?
Okay, so no more public comment. Then I'd make the motion to hold a public hearing to announce our short-term rental planning. It'll be Wednesday, the 29th at 1 p.m. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion from the board on that? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to have the meeting on the date as stated signify by saying
Hearing.
aye.
Did you say 1?
1 o'clock.
Should be evening?
It can be.
I mean, at 1 o'clock's kind of middle of the afternoon.
No, I don't care. You tell me what you want.
Yeah, I would rather do it later.
Wednesdays,
Does that help
we
you,
usually
Steve?
have our 12:30 meetings for work
I have a
sessions.
jury trial and I could be there till
It's not a
7
work
o'clock.
session.
I get it, yeah.
Do it
Would you
6
like to get
o'clock.
up and make a comment there? Okay. If it doesn't see it, it gets disjointed in the tape. Okay.
Let's go to 6 o'clock.
If you want to go to 6, I have no problem with that.
You guys good with that? 6 o'clock?
Let us do the motion, and then if you want to throw something in, sure. So I'll restate the motion and amend it to be the whole public hearing on the 29th, Wednesday the 29th at 6 o'clock.
Second that.
Okay, then we got a second on that. Any further discussion on that from the board? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to have the meeting on that date and time as stated signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, the same. Okay, passes 4-1. All right, we'll make an exception. What do you got there, John?
Just very quickly, I mean, it is probably an emotionally charged issue. I know people in the community will probably want to attend that meeting. Doing it, it would be nice if you guys did it at a time when people would be able to attend, potentially even people from downstate. Maybe do it on a Friday in the evening or a Saturday when people can get here. I know it's not the most convenient for you guys, but I think that with a public meeting, something of this nature, it would be wise. Just something for you to think about. Because I know there's
Appreciate it.
people that I know who would probably like to be here, but I'm certainly not going to be here at 1 o'clock, and during the week are tough.
A lot of the meetings are dictated by when board members can be
Yeah.
available. Wednesdays works for Mr. Monet. It's generally where we start.
I make a motion that we close the meeting.
I'll say. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, opposed, the same. Thanks for coming. We'll get somewhere in the long run.
What time we adjourn at? 7:30? Or at 8:40? I think we.
I know we're not going there on that, but maybe we should touch it, so I'm working that angle now. So I Brian, he was like, Brian, they want to buy that. I a lot of history. He was Patty Gallagher. Hey, you're gonna talk about the, substance. We have an ordinance, we have substance. We're not as far as the guys. I would really like to see you and take that. I'm gonna work with you on how. Really hope. Which comes from the House of Human Septic Committee, so take care. So I listen to that for a couple of hours, just watch them go through all the stuff and then get to that and go back to the planning commission. They're pretty cool with that. They only have a couple questions, go to the planning commission. There might be a state essentially. I think. And then get it to the board members. Probably I know where I'm talking about. But we just need 3 people on that board. Let's all be in the same on subject. Well, freaking right. You love the lights. Right? This. I spent a lot of time writing statements. Decided not to get frankly, the bones are the tail. You and I know. That's what he's I went through every one of my hours. We come up with 10 bucks. He wouldn't, he read it, he didn't like it, then like he did it. He liked it. I'm so tired of the game. So, thank you for, I'm sure you made a trip or something. Anyway, all right, but I appreciate it. Because usually, Steve doesn't usually come. Me and John and Kate, John Bucky,
the Mary Jane Doe, it's up in sale. That's it. Oh, well, you know.
What is the status?
We could pass it as a police officer and just add it.
Oh, yeah,
Did they pass that?
they absolutely did. So this is like, what do you want to call it, a buffer a year? Nobody's enforcing anything, they're going to educate this year. But there is a sunset clause. I mean, that's where my house is. Because nobody's talking about, I go on Shady Point, the nightmare next to my girlfriend on Kennedy Trail. We're talking, this way, people are watching, well, management companies who are buying these properties up. Now they can't nourish, they're gonna be looking at, why? Are you kidding me? Exactly. They're going, yeah. And he who doesn't want the cats. And he says, right. And he says, there's no deal. Are you kidding me? I said, sure, Dad. I tried to show him. There's no deal. I showed him it on the night. And he goes, oh, that's good. Yes. I mean, that's the that go on. I'm saying it's a cook for free. When you were going to your house, you see her.
I'm a nutshell.
Saturday. Thanks. There you go. Then you
I'm in a position where I can only say I believe this concern and maybe.
Well, I'm gonna go home.
I can tell you one thing, but don't quote me on this, but this is where it all landed. I asked her, I was thinking, how in the hell can you answer in regards to this, can your firm represent MTA? And then you also represent us, and you said, short street, you said, MTA will tell you all of the reasons and things that you have to kind of go through according to them. I'm gonna tell you what. I've been operating on the fact that if our attorney has given us advice, he's saying you can do that.
So April 29th is this one. It's not a public.
Oh, it is?
It is.
Yeah, it will be a public hearing, that way we satisfy.
All right. All right, thank you. So yeah, I was I was at the core board dinner.
Oh, really? That's fun?
Well, sure.
Hey, if you don't hear from me right away, send me an email about that copy of the short-term rental. Okay. I have to find theirs and somehow get it out. Share it.